Hi, Anoop, and hi, Ankita. Very happy New Year.
Wish you a very happy new year too.
Wish you a
26.
fantastic year. I mean, I don't know about the new, but it's going to be an amazing, awesome,
Amazing.
fantastic year. And I've been telling people, it's a new year. What do you have to lose this year? Just go nuts. So go nuts. And we have Ankita here with us. Been in touch with Ankita and known her for a while now through Clubhouse, of course. That's a culprit for a lot of us coming together.
Good old days.
Well, I don't know good days, but Ankita, over to you. Quick, brief introduction, which will stretch for the next 20 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Nisha. Thank you, Anu, for having me. Thrilled to be talking to the two of you. It's always interesting to catch up, people from your past life. As you stack on years, you look back at yourself and you say, that was me sometime back in the day. It was a different me. And that's how I feel in 2026. I've been through so many different transitions, I would say. Studied to be an engineer, worked as an engineer for a year, and then decided that maybe I should do something else. The creative part of me wasn't getting satisfied. So I started doing marketing, transitioned into digital marketing. So I've been on MarTech side, implementing systems and processes, and then running campaigns, wore several hats, head of marketing, and then I suddenly was bit by something that happens to a lot of us. It's called midlife crisis. And I decided to do something of my own. And so I left my corporate job and started to set up a company in the Middle East called Heia Global Group, which essentially was a consulting company aimed at taking my marketing technology and process experience and helping small and medium enterprises or traditional businesses that have been there for a while who are starting their digital journey in the region jump onto the digital bandwagon in totality, not just let's do something on social media, let's do some ads, but completely look at how marketing can be made more efficient, marketing using tools, using processes, how people need to be trained and upskilled for them to get the most out of it. And I set the company up 2 years back, and I've been doing that full time for just about a year now. So that's me.
That's a lovely journey.
It's a learning journey, I would say.
Yeah. No, I was recently reading this article by Dan Coe, and he said that specialization is so overrated. You should be able to do multiple things, pursue varied interests, and that kind of helps you evolve into, a wholesome person and also also a successful person. Basically, that was that was his core message.
I completely agree, Nisha. In fact, I would add to it and say this has happened in my life. I was somebody who was in a role of a process business analyst kind of a person, implementing systems and processes, being people, the go between business teams and IT teams who talk two different languages. And on the side, I had a hobby. It was blogging. I started blogging and my blog is kind of still active. So I was blogging, and somewhere in the early 2000s, blogging exploded. By the time it came to 2010s, people were looking at monetizing. It was no longer a digital diary. Brands were looking at it as a platform to reach, and people were being influencers when the term influencer wasn't even coined. And I was on two parallel paths back then. In my personal life, as a hobby, I was doing blogging and was working with brands like Colgate and Whisper and Tata Motors. So like really big brands in India. We were able to work with them. And on the side, there was this regular, stable corporate job, and both of them were going on a different path. And I happened to implement the marketing tool in my organization. I had a lot of interactions with the head of digital marketing then. She got to know me really well. And then when she had an opening in her team, she said, would you like to join? And would you like to kind of combine these two? Because I know you understand digital, you understand how email marketing works, and I've seen you do blogging and stuff and that. So let's just this kind of role which needs you to understand marketing technology, run campaigns, be a little strategic, and kind of a consultant to the other marketing team members, combine into one role. And I kind of moved into that. I think it's all these different things come together at some point in your life. And what he said is completely right. You develop in a very different way. And some things wouldn't happen if you wouldn't be doing that part of your journey.
Reminds me of the Steve Jobs speech, right? Again, it's a convergence of all that, all the experiences you have. He said, if I had not taken one calligraphy class during college, Mac would not have beautiful fonts.
Yeah.
And
That's
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
at some point, all these different experiences start converging. That's true of Nisha, that's true of me, that's true of you. And
That's so true.
it's how you see it. Many a times while the career is shifting, molding itself or changing, as we call changing, right? We tend to discard our experiences. So you did computer programming for a while and now you are into painting. They have nothing in common.
Yeah.
Of course, they have a lot in common. If you are a programmer of any caliber, you needed to have the ability to see the details, the forest and the trees, and have immense amount of patience while debugging.
Yeah, that's true.
You bring that to your art career too. So there are some, I do believe, people don't necessarily choose careers. Careers also choose people because
Yeah.
your personality traits kind of blend into those things naturally.
Yeah. The wand chooses the wizard and not the other way around.
Yeah, the Harry Potter example. But there's so many ways of thinking about it. Like, I heard somebody say that specialization is for ants. Human beings are much more holistic and we are not single task oriented and things like that. Of course, that also causes a lot of confusion. What is my purpose in life and what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to win and succeed? And thanks to the confusion, there are a lot of people who are the influencers, the gurus who are solving your life's trouble and coaches, who have made a lot of money out of this natural human state. You're never, ever, never needed to know what exactly you're supposed to do with your life. It's life, just live it. Now you have so many opportunities. Earlier you were a farmer or a carpenter or a plumber. Sorry, not even a plumber. You were a blacksmith or something like that. Those were your choices. But as a farmer, you also knew how to fix your cart. You also knew how to plow the field and select the right seeds and irrigate it properly. So you had multiple talents. It was not just being farmer.
Just being farmer. Yeah.
Right. And that is what causes confusion, I believe. Anyway, so the transition between engineering, marketing, digital, I understand, right? I mean, I've been in that journey too. The thing is, I believe the necessity to being put in a particular bucket causes a lot of confusion, right? And how do you deal with that? I mean, when somebody asks, what do you do? Most of us will jump and say marketing or sales or easy to understand category.
Yeah. So
how do you deal with that?
Creative ways. Back in the day when I used to do business analysis and it was very difficult to explain what I did. I started telling people that I solve problems in my company. I solve typical kind of problems. And then if they would ask me more, then I started saying, what do you do? So I help sales guys in my company make more commission. Those are the kind of things that I started saying, which kind of opens up room for more dialogue and not just block things. When I started here, I started saying, okay, I help people make their marketing more efficient. Everybody's doing marketing, but I try to make it in a way that they get more out of every dollar that they spend. But I always feel that it is very difficult to explain the nuances of what you do. Easier when you're a farmer, because while you're doing a multiple task, selecting the seeds and plowing the field and fixing your cart, at the end of the day, you're growing food or you're growing something. So it's difficult. That ambiguity is difficult to deal with. For a very long time, it was very difficult for me to explain to my mom what I did when I used to help implement tools and processes. So she would ask
If you
me,
can make your moms understand, you can make everybody understand.
Yes, yeah. So I realized
There is
that.
literally a book called The Mom Test.
Really?
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, it's very interesting book. A very nice book to read too. It's called The Mom Test. It's mostly for product development and all that. But it's very simple. If you can't explain what the product or the feature is to your mother, and the mother will ask certain type of questions, then you really are not ready for prime time.
Well, then
Do read the book. I recommend it wholeheartedly. So
I will check it out.
yeah, I mean, moms are the most difficult people to convince.
to add to that, while you're navigating all of this, the beauty of this kind of confusion was that it opened up room for conversation. So people were genuinely interested in having a conversation and getting to know you. They would ask questions. They would get into, okay, how do you do this? What do you do? So what does this mean? What does that mean? And you kind of start sharing, and then they would share their experiences. And in general, it would lead to good conversations when the other party is interested.
I feel that, especially with the corporate culture, I think it is a very difficult thing to explain what you do. Most of the people would struggle with this question because, again, they're doing multiple things. They're wearing multiple hats. It's not as singular as like growing food and everything around it. So, that's a, I don't know, that's a, I've never been able to explain what do I do. I mean, I do a lot of things, but where do I start?
There is an interesting video. I think it's a documentary or a video. It's called the Bullshit Jobs. It's called Bullshit Jobs. Just search for Bullshit Jobs. You'll find that video. The interesting thing about the modern life is so many titles, so many roles have been made up to keep people busy. The truth is that, I mean, a lot of jobs of analysis, analytics, consulting, the intermediary are bullshit jobs. The companies will not collapse if they don't exist. But they do add value. It's not like there's no zero value to them, right? They do add value. But in the grander picture, the value is very incremental. And the disappearance of those layers will not impact society as a whole. And so to add on to what you were saying, Nisha, explaining what you do is difficult because the output of that is actually a minor input into something else. You are not really a salesperson. You're not really a consumer. You're somewhere fourth person who's in the chain to reach the consumer.
Yes.
So you give an input, that input is collated by somebody else, that input is taken by somebody else, then something happens to it, right? So you're cog in the machine, basically.
That's true.
And that's why I've noticed in corporates, the titles become so important. So earlier when I was running agencies, people would join, new people would join, and I never gave them any titles. I would say, this is a responsibility. What will I call myself? Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Then the second demand was, what about my card? The visiting card, because that needs to have the title. So yeah.
Because you define your sense of self and your sense of worth by attaching to these titles, by the validation. And then the outside world also sees you like that, right? So, I was having a conversation.
Let me ask you two questions.
Go ahead.
I make marketing more efficient. Question number 1, what is marketing? And question number 2, who were you saying this to? If you answer that question, I'll tell you something around that. Please go ahead.
So what is marketing? Very interesting. Marketing, when I look at the way I was looking at marketing, was basically the money that the companies were spending or intending to spend to educate other people about what they do, the activities that they do around it, how they do it, the tools they use, content, processes, the human capital they put into it, the founders' time and mind space that they put into it, all of that put together. And who was I speaking to? Like I said, I was speaking to founders, small, medium businesses, startups, some of them, and businesses who were traditionally brick and mortar businesses who were not in the digital space at all, now wanting to start with the digital.
More or less people who understood what marketing is broadly.
Who were marketing
who were not confusing marketing with sales.
No.
And you are not talking to somebody in the corporate hierarchy who confused marketing with copywriting or with advertising or with PR. So there are subsets of marketing, right? People confuse with piece.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. That definition was sufficient for the audience you were talking to. On the other hand, if you were speaking to, let us say, consumers of certain, let's say, podcasts, and you say marketing to them, in their mind, they will say podcast is marketing. And that is where this whole concept of definitions come into play. You have to be very cautious about how you define certain things. And that is what most people don't understand.
Yeah.
In the corporate world, they are known by their title because they never put the thought to define what value they add. And we have had this discussion so many times in this podcast, wherein marketing being a confusing term causes so much trouble in the business world. Because in India, small businesses call it sales and marketing. Their priority is sales.
Sales and marketing.
It's not just small businesses, Anup. I have seen that in big multinationals also. There are times when the entire marketing department rolls up to sales because marketing is seen as a support function to sales. Ultimately, your job is to help the sales guy sell. So That's why it's easier to have those synergies and just make sure
And it
that
varies.
it
varies
varies
industry
company to
to
company, industry
industry,
to industry.
product to product, region wise.
Very, very common. Very, very common. In fact, in the Middle East, I remember having conversations with people who were looking at marketing support. Essentially, they were looking at sales and business development support. So
Yes.
when as Heia Global, I
What
would
we call as SDR, sales development
SDR,
resources.
sales development. So they would look at that, and I was, that's not my skill set. That's not what I'm doing. You don't develop new business, so you're not marketing. Then what are you doing? It was very different conversations, very different perceptions of people, and it's very common everywhere.
When we look at the B2B versus B2C
B2C.
markets itself, there itself the confusion starts, because see, B2C is, if the marketing is done well, sales happen. You have to do advertising marketing to have that mind recall value of a brand recall. When the person walks into a supermarket or opens Amazon or something like that, they remember that, I want to buy a Midori notebook and not one by Papercraft. I know these brands.
Yeah.
Because it's
an instant gratification on digital, right? I
Yes.
get an email. There's a new launch. I'll just buy that lipstick immediately, or that new pair of shoes, or that new jacket.
Provided the brand is known.
Yeah. Correct.
That is a B2C story. B2B story is completely different. And the purchaser asking, the first question the purchaser is asking, how can I trust this person? They will put me into trouble.
Absolutely.
Right?
The motivation in B2B versus B2C, and I think this is something I talk about a lot in LinkedIn. B2C is often driven by a need or a want that an individual has to satisfy. B2C. B2B, the motivation is to look good in your job or not look bad in my job. One of the two. Yeah. So the purchase decision.
The second one first.
Yeah.
Don't make me look bad is the first criteria. Whether I look good or not is secondary.
So nobody's going to stick your neck out. Nobody's going to take a chance on you. You're going to have to convince not just one person. Committee buying. Group of people with totally different motivation. There is a procurement person whose job is to register you as a vendor, as a service provider, as a vendor. There is a finance person whose job is to control costs. There is then a person who's actually going to use your product or service. Their motivation is completely different. So you're talking to all these different people in B2B, trying to tell them why what you're selling, service, product, whatever, is the best fit and the answer to all their dreams, while making sure their KPIs are fulfilled, while making sure they don't look bad in their decision making. So it's much tougher and a very different ballgame altogether. Yeah.
So I have a question, Ankita, right? And this is probably which will continue in future episodes with you, which means you have to come back.
I would love to.
So the question is around B2B purchase and sale of services. I'm not talking about McKinsey selling them the management consulting services. I'm saying Heia Global, which is your firm, selling their marketing services or whatever you're offering.
Yeah.
We'll leave it as whatever you're offering as a service to a company, a B2B sale, that is, right? So since you have been on both sides of the table, both as a purchaser and a seller.
And as a seller, yeah.
So let's pick one as, let's say, as a purchaser. What were the criteria? You already talked about it. Not making me look bad, etc. Can you go a little deeper into that?
As a purchaser, I think the single biggest thing was that I need to get something within the budget that is already defined to me, which makes me look good or not make me look bad. That was the single motivation. Will my boss approve? Will the hierarchy that needs approval, everybody has to approve? Will I be able to pull it off and say, okay, this is a feather in my cap for this year as a purchaser, or from a services perspective, right? Because I'm getting somebody on board and I don't want a white elephant. So basically, my purchase decision will be driven by cost. It will be driven by how much of my time and mind space goes in managing this person who's providing the service. How easy are they making it for me to take the decision? Whether they're helping me create more champions. It's committee buying, right? So there are multiple people in a department also who would evaluate, who would take that decisions. Is the service provider helping me convince other people also? Are they going to stay loyal to me? When it comes to a large organization, you could, service providers get entry into an organization through one person. And this person who's brought them in kind of expects that there'll be loyalty from that organization, right? So this person, if I need help, you're going to provide. I went out of my way to get you in. So when I need you to do something extra for me, you're going to go that extra mile. So all of these comfort factors, if I get, then I will make that purchase decision. I will make that recommendation for this person to provide their services or this agency to provide their services
So
as a
let me
purchaser.
ask, I've been on the other side of the table too, right? I've also purchased and sold. So as a seller, many a times the question comes, what are you looking for? Because the requirement is vague.
Yeah.
In those cases, how do you navigate what the seller is sending to you? Because see, you may have a requirement that I want to run this beautiful campaign on newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say somehow that came up.
Yeah.
And you don't know much about the campaigns. You have not done enough research to know, and you're expecting
Correct.
the seller to know and come to you and
Yeah.
either educate you or enlighten you about what is the best course of action. How does that conversation go?
That conversation is very difficult and mostly gut-led, because you want somebody who's knowledgeable enough to help you execute, but again, not so big that they will completely overshadow you, or not so deep that they stop respecting you as a client. That you need to also not somebody who just makes a lot of toy claims but is not able to substantiate them. So as a purchaser, asking for references if multiple times, or I would say 90% of the times, you're not going to go and call the references, ref check, and speak to the person and ask them how your experience with XYZ vendor was. But if there is a hesitation in providing those references, then you understand, okay, there's something wrong.
So you're looking for negatives actually,
You look for
how do I eliminate?
negatives, because ultimately it's always like, okay, nothing should go wrong. Even if it doesn't turn out to be something spectacular, which is the project of the month, project of the year, but there should be no pitfalls. So if you're able to navigate that, it's easier. The person who's coming in, the seller, if they are able to understand what your level of knowledge is. So if they are being consultative in their approach, if they've done things and they're able to give you examples and say, yes, we'll be able to take care, help, support, that's great. But if they go, oh, this is nothing, everybody has this and we've done this and that, and they're making a lot of toy claims, then even your hackles go up. Like, okay, this is what is happening here. I'm looking for support,
So
not looking for.
the seller should be a humble teacher who doesn't brag about past wins, and
Not really.
He's a
It can be
subject
a
matter
humble brag, Anup. I mean, if you do not tell
he's a
your
subject matter
achievements.
expert who doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, they should not be instructing you. They, as a seller,
Sharing,
you don't be talking down to your client.
Yeah.
You don't have to treat them like God, but just understand that this is probably a partnership.
Keep it professional.
Keep it professional. Yeah. Very, very.
You are in a business, they are in a business. Talk point to point, explain what has to be explained. Move on with your life. Don't become a professor, don't become a lecturer, don't become a guru or a pandit at that point
Exactly.
of time.
And don't become the person who's kind of, telling you how to run your business, because at the end of the day, the seller is an outsider. The person who is in the company, the purchaser, they do understand the nuances of the business better than somebody sitting up.
Right.
Yeah. And it is more like coming in to help them figure out a solution rather than just, laying down or giving gyan per se.
Yes. Yes. Nobody likes a discourse.
So I feel a conversational approach always helps rather than the teacher's approach or Mr. or Mrs. Know-it-all kind of an approach.
Exactly. And building onto it, what Anup said, you want to run a campaign, you may know some things about it, but you may not know a lot.
Everything about it, yeah.
So there is an exploration that is happening when, you're trying to make that purchase or sell decision.
That's something which we will talk about, I think, in another episode, right? A couple of things I want to catch hold of, Ankita, for is one is on this, as you talked about the buyer side, I would definitely want to explore the seller side also.
Sure.
Because you have sold a lot to the SME segment, especially in the Middle East, and how the behaviors are and what that looks like. Maybe in the next episode?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to.
Let's do that then.
Looking forward to it.
See you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Catch you soon.